10 years ago, Master Tu Za was the esteemed owner of a prominent Taoist temple, commanding over a dozen disciples. His days were spent healing the sick with herbal remedies and resolving spiritual matters. People trusted him implicitly. His reputation for good deeds spread far and wide, drawing folks from all corners who sought his divination, feng shui consultations, or protective talismans. Naturally, with his generous and chivalrous nature, Master Tu Za never refused anyone. And it was precisely this trusting nature that led to his downfall. Witnessing the growing prominence of Master Tu Za's temple, several sorcerers from a neighboring region became consumed by envy. They orchestrated a scheme. One of them would feign illness, seek a talisman from Master Tu Za, and then cause chaos. This happened not once, not twice, but dozens of times, creating an utterly chaotic scene. The climax of their sabotage came when the imposter sorcerers, posing as Master Tu Za, went to heal a patient and caused the patient's death. Unwittingly, Master Tu Za found himself entangled in legal trouble. Recognizing an unavoidable calamity, he decided to close his temple, dismiss all his disciples, and embark on a solitary retreat. Many claimed he was confused, as he was clearly innocent, but no matter what was said, he refused to change his decision. After more than 3 months, the trial concluded, and Master Tu Za was sentenced to 8 years in prison. On the day he began his sentence, a large crowd gathered. However, their concern was fleeting. As time passed, his reputation and the public's interest in him gradually faded. After serving his sentence, Master Tu Za decided not to return to his old village or his former profession. He borrowed a small sum of money from a friend and drifted to the lower reaches of the Tralu River to make a new life. There, he bought a small plot of land, built a simple house, and worked as a tenant farmer. The name, Tu Za, no longer existed. He now used his real name, Tran Than Lam. From then on, Mr. Lam lived a quiet, unassuming life, blending in like any other ordinary person. This morning, as usual, Mr. Lam woke early, cooked some rice, packed it into his lunchbox, and headed to the fields. Just as he was rekindling the fire in his kitchen, he heard excited shouts outside. A little curious, he stood up, leaned out the breezy window, and called loudly, "Who's out there?" "It's me, Uncle Lam." The person who replied was Thin, a young man who lived a few hundred meters away. Unlike Mr. Lam, Thin didn't work in the fields. At this hour, he should have been out. So Thin's presence here made Mr. Lam suspicious. He asked, "What's all the commotion about so early in the morning?" "Uncle Lam, something terrible has happened, don't you know?" "Good heavens, I just woke up. What's going on?" "Uncle Lam, do you know Mr. Vuong's family from upriver?" "Vuong, the one who runs the general store?" "Yes, that's right. His son drowned. People are searching the river right now. It's so tragic. I was on my way to the fields earlier, so I ran back to tell everyone to come help search." Mr. Lam was startled. He knew the unfortunate family a little. If he remembered correctly, Vuong's son was only 7 or 8 years old, far too young for such a fate. Without hesitation, Mr. Lam quickly put out the fire in the kitchen, grabbed his hat, and rushed out, following Thin. The two men ran to the riverbank, where a sizable crowd of villagers had already gathered. About 10 to 15 steps away, Mr. Lam saw Mr. Vuong embracing his wife, who was wailing inconsolably, calling out her son's name in desperation. T, where are you, T?" Upon closer inquiry, it turned out that this Sunday morning, the boy hadn't gone to school. Instead, he had gone fishing with his friends by the river. Somehow, he had stripped off his clothes and jumped into the river to swim alone. The other children hadn't paid much attention, but when they casually looked back, T was nowhere to be seen. At this point, Mr. Lam asked if the boy had been found yet. "Not yet," a nearby person replied, shaking his head. "It's been an hour, and 4 or 5 people have been diving, but we still can't find him in this stretch of the river." Being knowledgeable in Taoist arts, Mr. Lam quickly pushed past the curious onlookers and scanned the river. Just as he suspected, 5 or 6 white-clad figures with long, flowing hair shimmered faintly above the water. These were water spirits, the tormented souls of those who had drowned in this very spot. Their sole purpose was to lure and drown people whose fates aligned with theirs, dragging them to their watery graves. Typically, when someone was pulled down by a water spirit, It was possible to retrieve their soul by performing a ritual. However, seeing there was little time, Mr. Lamb intended to use his own magic to help the boy. But before he could speak, the crowd erupted. Master Kai is here. How is it, Master Kai? Which Master Kai? Mr. Lamb turned to Thin, who immediately explained. Oh, Master Kai from the district town. He's very famous, Uncle Lamb. He makes talismans and performs rituals. They probably couldn't find the body, so Mr. Vuong's family asked him for help. Ah, so that's it, Mr. Lamb nodded. Since he had settled in this region, he hadn't encountered anyone practicing Taoist arts. Now, he'd see what this master could do. If Kai failed, Mr. Lamb would step in. So, Mr. Lamb and the others moved aside for Master Kai to approach. He appeared to be a middle-aged man in his late 30s, with dark skin, disheveled hair, but unusually bright, sharp eyes. What caught Mr. Lamb's attention was the intricate tattoo of Khmer script adorning Kai's arm. To an uninitiated eye, it might look like swirling earthworms, but Mr. Lamb, of course, understood. It was a type of protective charm, common among Khmer practitioners, tattooed onto the body for self-defense. Master Kai stood facing the river, his lips moving silently, chanting a few incantations. Mr. Lamb observed that no water spirits were lingering nearby anymore. He mused to himself, well, it seems he's not an ordinary practitioner. I won't need to intervene this time. After another 10 minutes of chanting, Master Kai turned to Vuong and his wife. Quickly, find me a banana trunk, some salt, rice, and a bundle of incense. If you don't bring them, the boy won't be found. Vuong nodded and rushed off to prepare. Once he had all the necessary items, Master Kai poured the rice and salt into the river, then carved a small hole in the banana trunk and placed them inside. He lit 3 incense sticks and stuck them into the trunk before gently launching it into the water. The banana trunk now resembled a small raft, drifting along with the current. Suddenly, when it reached the middle of the river, it began to spin rapidly, as if someone were pushing it. The crowd on the bank gasped and murmured, some even closing their eyes and muttering Buddhist prayers. After another minute, the banana raft stopped spinning, returning to its original position. This time, it didn't float downstream but upstream, towards the dense reeds on the opposite bank. Seeing this, Master Kai shouted, "There, dive in quick!" 4 or 5 divers on the bank were half believing, half doubting, but they didn't dare delay. They plunged into the water and began searching. As if by magic, less than 5 minutes later, an arm emerged from the water, followed by a loud shout. Found him, found him! Sure enough, little T was finally brought up. His entire body was pale, his eyes closed, and he was cold and lifeless. His heart had stopped beating. Of course, he couldn't be saved. Vuong and his wife collapsed, weeping uncontrollably over their son's body. Now that the child was dead, people no longer feared getting close. The crowd whispered their condolences, and those helping the distraught parents worked to complete the necessary steps to bring the boy's body home. Mr. Lamb had been observing all this time. T's body had been recovered, but Mr. Lamb was still waiting for Master Kai to perform one more crucial ritual, to summon the boy's soul back to his body. 5 then 10 minutes passed, but his opponent made no move. Mr. Lamb muttered, "Strange, doesn't he know how to do this ritual? I'll have to step in, it's not good for the boy." Just as he was about to speak, Mr. Lamb suddenly froze. He witnessed Master Kai discreetly pull the half-burned incense sticks from the banana raft and tuck them into his robe. With his decades of experience and keen insight, Mr. Lamb didn't need to ask why. Immediately, his face darkened and he stammered, "Good heavens, could it be?" This sudden change in attitude had a clear reason. The 3 incense sticks on the banana trunk acted as an anchor, allowing the soul of the drowned person to cling to them, preventing the water spirits from dragging it away. After T's body was recovered, Master Kai should have left the incense sticks and the banana trunk as they were and performed a final incantation. Instead, his action of taking the incense and pocketing them strongly suggested he was planning something sinister, unwilling to help an innocent soul. Mr. Lamb decided to follow Kai and see what he would do. The crowd quickly dispersed, and those involved didn't linger, heading home to make funeral arrangements for the unfortunate boy. Kai turned to Mr. Lamb and said, "Let's go home, Mr. Lamb, it's all over. Why are you standing there like a statue?" "Oh, you go on ahead. I just remembered I have something urgent to attend to," Mr. Lamb replied. With that, he walked straight down the path, leaving Thin looking utterly confused. Mr. Lamb walked a short distance, then stopped, hiding behind a large banyan tree and watched discreetly. Master Kai had not yet left. He gazed down at the river, continued to chant, and only departed a few minutes later. As soon as Kai was out of sight, Mr. Lamb emerged from his hiding spot and quickly followed him. After a short pursuit, he finally saw his opponent enter a small house. To an ordinary person, there would be nothing unusual about it, but Mr. Lamb, with his spiritual sight, saw much more. Dark energy, he muttered, for indeed, the house was enveloped in a dense cloud of dark energy, accumulated like a physical fog. To have such a powerful source of dark energy, there must be something sinister within. Mr. Lamb took a deep breath and cautiously approached the wall. As he drew near, he heard a string of incantations in Khmer echoing from inside. Though he couldn't understand every word, Mr. Lamb recognized some phrases as a spell to summon spirit soldiers. This wasn't unfamiliar to practitioners of Taoist arts. It seemed everyone had their own cohort of spirit soldiers. Those with weaker magic used them as mere protective charms for minor tasks, but powerful sorcerers could command vast numbers, forming an army whose strength was undeniable. Returning to his task, Mr. Lamb, while his opponent was intensely focused on his chanting, peeked through a crack in the window. Inside, the house was completely empty, devoid of any furniture or belongings. There was only one striking feature: a large, dark bronze altar wall, adorned with two sharp, pointed swords, standing in the center of the room. The mere sight of this wall instantly darkened Mr. Lamb's face. He not only knew of it, but understood its grave implications. This was the Asura god wall, representing a demon king of the underworld. Worshipping such a wall was not only dangerous for the individual, but could unleash widespread disaster upon the entire region. With a surge of courage, Mr. Lamb felt an urge to rush in and dismantle the dark ritual. But on second thought, he held back. He didn't know how powerful his opponent truly was. Moreover, it had been a long time since he had actively practiced his magic, and he feared that a sudden, powerful exertion could lead to a dangerous backlash. Speaking of Master Kai, after finishing his incantation, he took the 3 incense sticks from his pocket and planted them in an incense burner before him. As soon as they were planted, a plume of black smoke billowed from beneath the white sand in the burner. Mr. Lamb knew exactly what this meant. This sorcerer was not performing good deeds at all. He had pretended to help the boy's family find the body, but he hadn't returned the soul for a proper funeral. Instead, he had brought it here, trapping it in this incense burner, using it to nurture his spirit soldiers. The truth was now clear. Mr. Lamb clenched his fist and muttered, "This is truly wicked. I must warn him before it's too late." Having made his decision, Mr. Lamb quickly activated his magical power, projecting a deep voice directly into his opponent's mind. "Stop! Who is that? Out of respect for the Tao, you don't need to know who I am, but you should cease what you are doing now. Otherwise, the consequences will be immeasurable." "Who are you? Speak quickly. Who are you?" "I am merely a passerby who sees you walking down the wrong path and wishes to offer guidance. I hope you will stop before it's too late." "Silence! Don't think that a little knowledge of Taoist arts can intimidate me. Let me tell you, I don't care what Saint King you are, but if you dare interfere in my affairs, I will find you and take revenge, even if it costs me my life." "Do not speak like that. Taoist arts are like the vast ocean. They are immense. You only see the surface and think everything is calm, but you don't know how many dangers lurk beneath. Listen to me. Stop now before it's too late." Mr. Lamb only managed to say this much because his opponent used a spell to cut off their telepathic communication. Feeling a little disappointed, he shook his head with a sigh. He truly doesn't know his own limitations. I hope by the time he realizes it, it won't be too late. Mr. Lamb didn't linger. He turned and left. Kai's chanting still echoed from within the house. Upon returning home, Mr. Lamb lit a stick of incense at his altar, praying for peace. As for the boy's soul, he couldn't help it anymore. He hoped that one day it would be freed from its fate as a spirit soldier, controlled by another. Of course, hearing this, many might think Mr. Lamb was timid, afraid to intervene, but he understood the situation best. His current magical power was not only inferior to his opponent's, but intervening now could provoke Master Kai's fury, making him determined to seek revenge. This would put many other people in danger. Now, the boy was already gone. It was his fate. Some time passed. This morning, as usual, Mr. Lamb picked up his hoe and headed to the fields to clear the weeds. When he arrived, he heard someone calling, "Uncle Lamb, Uncle Lamb?" The caller was none other than Thin. Usually, it was just a normal greeting. Mr. Lamb smiled, waved, and was about to walk towards the field in front of him. But Thin continued to call out, "Uncle Lamb, wait, I have a question." "What is it?" "Do you feel anything unusual right now?" "What do you mean, unusual?" "I don't know, but it feels like there's a land ghost stirring Uncle Lamb." "A ghost? Boy, have you run out of things to talk about?" "No, I'm serious. Who joke with you? I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but many people in the village have. They're all buzzing about it, a ghost." "So, what did they see the ghost doing? Tell me." Thin looked around before he began his story. 2 nights ago, there was a concert in the district town. A huge crowd went. By the time the show ended, it was past 11 p.m. Everyone rushed home as fast as they could. Only 2 siblings, a young woman from our village, and her younger brother Dat, were left. She was waiting for her brother, and they were riding bicycles, so it took them a while to get to the edge of the village. As they passed the riverbank, the back wheel of Dat's bike suddenly felt heavy. The harder she pedaled, the more sluggish it became. La called out to her brother behind her, "Dat, check the back wheel for me, is something stuck? It's so heavy." But she received no reply. She asked 2 or 3 more times, but her brother remained silent. Annoyed, La stopped the bike, intending to scold him for not answering. But oh my, behind her, there wasn't just her brother, but another shadowy figure dressed in red. Figure isn't quite right, as it only had a partial human body. Its face was hairy, with a pair of blood-red eyes, and its tongue was incredibly long, dangling down to Dat's chest. The boy sat still and motionless on the bike seat, his eyes vacant. La screamed in terror and fled. It was already past midnight, so it took a while for someone to hear her cries and open their door. After La recounted her story, they rushed out and found only the bicycle and Dat sitting on the ground. However, at that moment, the boy was like a statue. He didn't answer any questions, someone even pinched him hard. Normally, he would surely cry out in protest, but he showed no expression at all. So, after taking him home, he refused to go inside, preferring to stand in the yard. Anyone who approached him, he would bite and scratch. His strength was so immense that 2 or 3 people who tried to carry him inside were violently thrown back. Helpless, the family had to leave him under the eaves. It wasn't just Le and her brother. In the past 2 nights, several other people had also seen that red-clad ghost. It flew and jumped through the treetops, and sometimes swooped down to catch chickens, ducks, and cause mischief. Now, rumors of it have spread everywhere. As Thin recounted this, Mr. Lamb became perplexed. Since moving to this area, he had surveyed the local geography. This was a place of thriving energy with good feng shui, so the appearance of a ghost was highly improbable. Furthermore, one that manifested so boldly and harmed people was not a simple kind. This definitely meant something sinister was at play. So, Mr. Lamb decided that after finishing his work, he would visit the boy named Dat to investigate. Upon arriving, it was exactly as Thin had described. Under the eaves of the small house, a boy sat motionless on a folding bed. Around the bed, 3 or 4 ropes were strung, and several talismans were taped to the 4 corners. Seeing Mr. Lamb, several people from the house rushed out, one of them being Dat's father, Kwang. Since they lived in the same village, they were somewhat acquainted. Kwang anxiously asked, "Mr. Lamb, what brings you here?" "Nothing in particular. I heard your son was ill, so I came to inquire. How is he?" Kwang sighed, shaking his head despairingly. "How do I answer that? Just look at him. He's no different from a mute and deaf statue. He doesn't respond to calls, nor does he eat or drink anything. This family is surely doomed." As he spoke, he glanced angrily at his daughter. "This is your fault, taking him out so late at night, and now we're cursed. I'm telling you, if anything happens to him, you won't live in peace with me." La, hearing this, burst into tears and knelt down, clasping her hands and begging her brother, "Dat, can you hear me? If you can, please come back, Dat." Witnessing this scene, Mr. Lamb couldn't help but feel sorrow. From what he had observed, Dat's soul was no longer intact. His physical body was here, but his soul had been captured. He walked closer, reached out, and tore off the talismans. This action startled Kwang and everyone present. Kwang stepped forward and asked Mr. Lamb, "What are you doing, sir?" "These useless talismans are just getting in the way and doing nothing. Listen to my instructions. Fetch me a large bucket of water and put some earth from your ancestral altar's incense burner into it. Hurry, if we delay any longer, he can't be saved." Although he didn't know what Mr. Lamb intended, Kwang had no other choice and quickly rushed to follow his instructions. Once everything was prepared, Mr. Lamb dipped his hand into the water and sprinkled it onto the boy's face. As soon as a few drops of the enchanted water touched him, his body twitched violently. Kwang, worried, was about to rush forward and pick up his son, but Mr. Lamb immediately stopped him. "Don't go near, it's dangerous." As he spoke, he continued to sprinkle more water until it was all gone. Dat then lay down on the bed and fell unconscious. Though his face was still pale and sickly, his breathing had generally normalized. Mr. Lamb turned to Kwang and said, "You can bring him inside now. Lay him in front of the ancestral altar in the house. Absolutely do not let him go outside. Furthermore, no one in the house is to kill any living creature. I will take care of the rest." But how? Explaining it would take too long. Suffice it to say, I know a little about Taoist arts. Your son's soul has been taken by a ghost. What I just did was help his body regulate its vital energy, creating conditions for his soul to easily return to his body. The next step is the important one. We must find your son's soul. Kwang pleaded, "Mr. Lamb, please help my son. My family will be eternally grateful to you." "Calm down. If I can do it, I will help. No need for gratitude. And don't blame your daughter, it wasn't intentional. Now just follow my instructions. I'm leaving now." With that, Mr. Lamb turned and walked straight out onto the road. His words, though firm, concealed a deep worry. Where would he find the ghost now? And would his own power be enough to subdue it? The more he thought, the more troubled Mr. Lamb felt. That afternoon, he returned home and sat cross-legged in meditation for hours, partly to calm his mind and partly to restore his magical power. When dusk fell, he ceased meditating. After lighting a few incense sticks at the altar, he opened a cabinet and retrieved an old, rusty compass. Holding it in his hand, he muttered several incantations. As he chanted, the needle on the compass spun rapidly, so violently that his hand trembled. Then, after about 5 minutes, the needle stopped, pointing directly to one corner. Mr. Lamb let out a breath and smiled faintly. "Finally, I've found you." Without further delay, he quickly stood up, donned his hat, opened the door, and followed the direction indicated by the compass. After nearly half an hour, Mr. Lamb stopped and realized he was standing before a large cluster of bamboo. This was a dense thicket, not tall, but so interwoven it looked like a fortress. The needle on the compass continued to spin. Mr. Lamb took a deep breath, placed the compass on the ground, and formed a hand seal. Just as he finished the first incantation, a cold gust of wind blew, kicking up a swirling cloud of dust. Standing amidst the dust, Mr. Lamb remained unfazed, continuing to chant the entire spell. When he finished and opened his eyes, he saw a red-clad figure standing before him. Its appearance matched the description Thin had given. It growled, extended its long tongue, and spoke, "Old man, where are you going? Don't you know this is my territory? Get out now, or don't blame me if I get angry." Mr. Lamb stood calmly, his demeanor composed. He also noticed a small red cloth bag hanging from the ghost's waist. If he wasn't mistaken, this bag was used to capture and imprison the souls of wicked people. Seeing that his opponent was not afraid, the ghost snarled, baring its claws, and lunged forward. When it was just a handspan away from Mr. Lamb, an invisible force suddenly pushed it back. At this point, the ghost realized it had underestimated its opponent. The old man standing before it was no ordinary foe, so it retreated into a defensive stance, its mouth still spewing taunts and provocations. "Old man, you have some skill, but let me tell you, you can't do anything to me. Stop talking so much, release the child you captured quickly. I'll spare you if you do, otherwise don't blame me." Mr. Lamb's voice created an invisible pressure, causing the ghost to retreat a few more steps. Though it still snarled, its face had lost some of its ferocity. Not stopping there, Mr. Lamb bit his index finger. Blood welled from the wound, and he flicked it straight towards the ghost. Although the ghost had been preparing for defense, the blood flew too quickly, and it couldn't fully evade. Its arm was struck, and it let out a soul-shattering shriek of pain that seemed to tear through the sky. It was hard to believe that just one drop of blood could cause the ghost such agony. It made one wonder about the true extent of Mr. Lamb's power. Recognizing that it had encountered a master, the ghost quickly tried to de-escalate. "Old man, what's there to talk about? You don't need to be so aggressive." "I'll repeat myself one last time. Hand over the bag on your person or don't blame me." All right, I'll give it to you." The ghost finished speaking, then tossed the bag straight at Mr. Lamb. He bent down to pick it up. Seeing his opportunity, the ghost gritted its teeth, resumed its ferocious appearance, and lunged forward, launching a dangerous attack. Of course, Mr. Lamb was not so easily fooled. He deftly dodged the attack and flicked a few more drops of blood. This time, the blood struck the ghost's body. The ghost was thrown back, covered in wounds. It snarled, unable to articulate its cries. Mr. Lamb raised his hand, intending to flick more drops of blood, but at that moment, his head swam and his limbs went numb. Seeing this, the ghost quickly vanished. Mr. Lamb fell to his knees, gasping for breath. This was precisely what he had feared most. Having not practiced magic for so long, his body could barely endure it if he exerted too much power. Luckily, the ghost had fled. If it had continued its attack, he didn't know what would have happened to him. After resting for a while, Mr. Lamb stood up and opened the cloth bag. A small light shot out from within. He closed his eyes and murmured an incantation. The light, as if hearing his command, quickly flew away. He stood up and walked towards Kwang's house. Before he could even step inside, he heard joyful shouts and laughter echoing from within. As Mr. Lamb reached the door, little Dat rushed out and knelt before him. "Mr. Lamb, my father and I thank you so much. We can never repay this kindness. Tell us what you want. We will certainly not refuse." "It's good that he's recovered. I don't need anything. I only came to see if everything was all right. Also, now that his soul has returned, the family must absolutely not let him go out at night. It's best to let the boy sleep in the ancestral shrine room for the rest of the month. By then, he'll be fine." Kwang nodded profusely. All right. I must take my leave now. I have to go to the fields early tomorrow." With that, Mr. Lamb turned and left. It had been a long time since he had felt the satisfaction of using his powers to help others. Though it was a strange experience, he told himself this was just a special case, and he had no intention of returning to his old path. He arrived home, and the clock showed it was past 10 p.m. Mr. Lamb washed away the lingering traces of dark energy from his body, then climbed into bed and slowly drifted to sleep. He thought the ordeal was over, but no. Not long after he fell asleep, bitter curses echoed in his ears. Opening his eyes, he realized he was no longer in his bed but lying in a vast, empty field. Not only that, but around him stood hundreds, thousands of shadowy figures. Each one wore a face filled with murderous intent. "What is this?" He started to approach the crowd, but an instinct warned him to stop. Knowing it was just an illusion, he quickly formed a hand seal and shouted loudly, "Break!" As soon as the command was uttered, Mr. Lamb found himself standing in his dream, for he was still lying in his familiar bed. Before he could fully regain his composure, a voice from outside spoke, "It seems you're quite skilled after all. Living in this land for so many years without revealing your identity. Now you plan to be a hero?" The voice sounded somewhat familiar, but Mr. Lamb couldn't immediately place it. Mr. Lamb quickly got out of bed, curious, and opened the door. The person he saw was no stranger. It was Master Kai, whom he had met before. Mr. Lamb took a deep breath, feigning a slow, relaxed demeanor. "Greetings, young man. Who are you, coming here in the middle of the night?" "Don't pretend, old man." As he said this, Mr. Lamb also caught sight of a shadow lurking behind Kai. This shadow was also no stranger. It was the red-clad ghost from before. Now Mr. Lamb understood everything, and it answered the question in his mind about its origin. So, there was someone behind it all. The act of capturing Dat's soul was identical to the previous incident where Kai had captured T's soul when he drowned. "Well, old man, do you understand your crime now?" "Young man, you clearly know that what you are doing goes against the laws of heaven. Why are you so stubborn? If you still have a shred of clarity, please give up. These demons and ghosts only offer you temporary benefits. Later, you will regret it eternally." "Silence, don't think that just because you're old you can say anything you want. If you have the skill to defeat the ghosts I nurture, then let's have a fight and see whose power is greater. If I lose, I will listen to you." Though somewhat annoyed, Mr. Lamb knew he was no match for Kai at the moment. Furthermore, his exertion earlier had caused his vital energy to become unbalanced. To risk it now would be to throw his life away. So, Mr. Lamb continued to pretend. I only offer advice, I have no great skill. Go home, young man, it's good that you are afraid. If you continue to cause trouble, even heaven won't save you. Kai let out a long, triumphant laugh, then turned and walked away. After Kai was out of sight, Mr. Lamb closed the door, breathing heavily. He walked to the altar, lit a few more incense sticks, bowed, then climbed back into bed. Perhaps it was because his body was so exhausted, but he quickly fell into a deep, confused sleep. In his dream, he vaguely saw many figures appear, his former master, his old disciples, and various deities. None of them spoke to him, they simply stood there, looking at him with disappointment. The next morning, Mr. Lamb woke up late, but his body seemed to have returned to normal, no longer aching or sore. Remembering the many tasks waiting for him in the fields, he quickly ate, put on his hat, grabbed his hoe, and rushed out. But before he could leave the gate, a voice called him back. Uncle Lamb, Uncle Lamb. Startled, he turned and recognized the caller as Kwong. His face was frantic. Mr. Lamb asked, "Hello, what's wrong?" "Uncle Lamb, please save Dat, my son, please." "What's wrong with him? I brought his soul back, didn't I?" "I don't know, but this morning when he woke up, he was acting strange. He just sat on the bed, staring at the ancestral altar. At first, I thought he was just groggy, so I didn't pay attention. But then he suddenly stood up and lunged, knocking over all the ancestral photos, lamps, and incense burners on the altar. I spanked his bottom a few times, but he just laughed creepily and scratched deep marks on my arm." As he spoke, Kwong showed his bloodied arm. Hearing this, Mr. Lamb was shocked. Without hesitation, he quickly ran to Kwong's house. When he arrived, he saw Kwong's family standing outside in the yard, and the house door was locked from the outside. Inside, fierce growls echoed, sending chills down his spine. Mr. Lamb immediately shouted, "Everyone stand back. Let me go in and see. No one is to enter, understand? If anything happens, I won't be able to get to you in time." He then raised his index finger, bit it until blood flowed, then opened the door and stepped inside. At that moment, Kwong's house was like a battlefield. Mr. Lamb looked around but saw no one at first. Then he heard a cackling laugh, and he looked up to see Dat clinging to the ceiling, exactly like a lizard. It looked at him, its mouth twisted into a sinister grin. Mr. Lamb extended his bloodied index finger and murmured an incantation, but the boy not only showed no fear but looked at him. "Old man, do you think this trick still works?" "What, you?" Now Mr. Lamb vaguely recognized that the entity possessing Dat was none other than the red-clad ghost from last night. He clenched his fist and angrily shouted, "You demon, don't push your luck. Get out of that boy's body now, or don't blame me." "Oh, so you're quite bold, aren't you? Aren't you afraid my Master Kai will expose you? Now, be smart and get out of the way. This boy is no blood relation to you. Whether he lives or dies is none of your concern. Don't you care about your own safety?" For some reason, Mr. Lamb's conscience seemed to override all his previous worries. He glared at the ghost, muttering incantations. In a short time, the situation changed dramatically. The ghost no longer looked triumphant. Instead, it jumped to the ground, adopting a defensive stance. Mr. Lamb continued his chanting, his voice resonating like a flowing stream winding through every corner. The ghost began to get agitated. It snarled and tried to lunge, but it seemed to struggle. Because from the beginning, Mr. Lamb's chanting was like an invisible wall. Now, wherever the ghost lunged, it was repelled. It panicked, looking around constantly for an escape. Mr. Lamb raised his hand and flicked another drop of blood towards the ghost. Unaware, the blood struck it right in the forehead. A soul-piercing scream erupted, startling even those standing outside. Inside, the ghost, still in Dat's form, writhed on the ground, wailing as if in great pain. Giving it no chance, Mr. Lamb immediately stepped forward, using his bloodied index finger to press down on the crown of the boy's head. As he pressed, the boy's entire body convulsed as if an electric current ran through it, then he collapsed to the ground. From within his body, a cloud of red energy emerged. Mr. Lamb was no less quick. He tore off a piece of his robe and used it to gather the red energy, then quickly stuffed it into the half-burned oil lamp on the altar. A sizzling sound mixed with tragic cries echoed for over a minute, then everything fell silent, returning to normal. Finished, Mr. Lamb carried Dat in his arms and opened the door, stepping outside. In his arms, the boy lay quietly. Kwong, worried, immediately asked, "Mr. Lamb, what's wrong with my son?" "He's fine. Everything is over now. Everyone, go inside and clean up. For now, take him to another village to stay for a few days, then bring him back. So the ghost hasn't given up on my son yet. No, the ghost has been destroyed by me, but that's not what I'm worried about. Just do as I've instructed, don't ask too many questions. Make good use of your time. Yes. Leaving there, Mr. Lamb walked back to his house. His face now clearly showed a discomfort. One reason was that he had just exerted himself, depleting his vital energy. Another was that he realized Master Kai would soon seek revenge. And just as Mr. Lamb feared, that very afternoon, a flock of black crows suddenly gathered outside. They perched near and surrounded his small house, then continually peered into the house and cawed. Mr. Lamb wasn't overly worried, nor did he try to drive them away. He brought a small stool from inside and sat on the ground, watching the crows as if watching TV. A few curious people tried to approach, but he immediately sent them away, fearing they would get involved. As dusk fell, the crows showed no signs of stopping their cawing. In fact, their numbers had significantly increased. One might even think Mr. Lamb was raising crows if they didn't know better. The crows suddenly stopped cawing. From the darkness ahead, a group of figures slowly approached. As they drew closer, it became clear that these were not people but wandering ghosts, incomplete in form. One didn't need to guess to know these were the spirits sent by Kai. They were called wandering ghosts because they were weak, typically used only to disturb people, not as fierce or powerful as spirit soldiers. Mr. Lamb remained seated on his stool, making no move. As the wandering ghosts approached the gate, they suddenly stopped. It turned out Mr. Lamb had prepared in advance. Around his house on the ground, he had scattered glutinous rice flour mixed with enchanted water and talismans. Mr. Lamb's house now resembled a fortress. Dark energy could not penetrate inside. While the wandering ghosts were confused, trying in vain to enter, a deep, hoarse voice echoed from behind them. "Old man, it seems I underestimated you. This spell has been lost for a long time. Who are you, after all? What is your identity, that you've kept it hidden until now?" Mr. Lamb shook his head, rising from his stool, and muttered in reply, "Honorable practitioner, I truly have no great skill. I am just an old man who abandoned Taoist arts long ago. You, too, are a practitioner of the Tao, so you should understand the principles of yin and yang. Our purpose is to minimize contact between the two realms, not to exploit it for personal gain. From ancient times to now, those who follow perverse paths never come to a good end. Leave." "Are you lecturing me again, old man? Don't think I don't know who you are, and I'm afraid these tricks won't work on me." As he spoke, a strong gust of wind suddenly blew, kicking up a swirling cloud of dust. The wind also swept away all the glutinous rice flour. The house, now stripped of its defenses, was instantly overrun by the wandering ghosts, as if they were fresh meat ready to devour anyone who stood in their way. As for Mr. Lamb, he didn't seem agitated at all. Instead, a hint of satisfaction flashed in his eyes. And then, when the wandering ghosts were only about a handspan away, a sudden burst of light emanated from inside the house. It was so intense that it dimmed the light of the nearby street lamps. Wherever the light shone, the wandering ghosts disintegrated, screaming in agony. Even Kai outside was shocked. He stared wide-eyed and muttered, "What is this? How?" It turned out Mr. Lamb's preparations were not just the glutinous rice flour. He had also brought out his most treasured spiritual artifact, a bronze sword. Legend had it that in ancient times, when his sect was founded, his grandmaster had used this very sword to slay a demon king. Since then, this sword had been a terror to evil spirits. Just its radiant aura alone was enough to scatter souls, let alone being touched by it. In the blink of an eye, the area around the house was completely cleared of wandering ghosts, leaving only Kai and Mr. Lamb. The situation had now drastically changed. Kai's hands trembled with anger at the loss of his spirit army. He seethed, "Old man, you truly have skills." "I told you, I have no skills. I don't wish for victory or defeat. Let's end everything here. I don't want to push you to the brink, as long as you promise not to use your magic to harm people anymore." Kai gnashed his teeth, saying no more, then turned and vanished. Only when Kai's shadow was gone did Mr. Lamb fall to his knees. It turned out that he had been exerting himself to maintain his composure. His body now, if he tried to use even a little more strength, might just give out. The situation seemed more serious when Mr. Lamb coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood, and the light from the sword also faded. He lay there, fallen to the ground, until almost dawn when he finally regained consciousness and slowly stumbled back inside. Fortunately, Kai did not return to cause trouble the next day. Mr. Lamb seized the time to close his doors and meditate, hoping to recover his strength. As for Kai, he was furious. He couldn't sleep all night. In his heart, he was both curious and afraid, wondering who this old man really was and how he could deal with him so easily. That night, Kai once again led the remaining wandering ghosts to Mr. Lamb's house to provoke him. Although Mr. Lamb had not recovered much, it was clear that the wandering ghosts were no match for him. Mr. Lamb was also curious, because from the beginning, Kai had not unleashed his elite spirit soldiers. Was he waiting for something else? Mr. Lamb thought so, and remained extremely cautious, not daring to be careless. His house was now fortified with talismans and a thick layer of glutinous rice flour everywhere. He hoped Kai would see the difficulty and retreat, but for someone as cunning as Kai, he wasn't so naive. The reason he used the wandering ghosts was to test and understand what magic Mr. Lamb was using, so he could find clues about his opponent's background. So, at dawn, he began to use his connections to gather information, determined to find out everything about Mr. Lamb. And after more than 3 days of effort and expense, Kai finally learned a bit about Mr. Lamb's past. But what made him most triumphant was discovering that Mr. Lamb had not practiced Taoist arts for decades. This meant that his power was no longer great. So, he immediately sent a group of spirit soldiers to probe. The spirit soldiers, following instructions, approached Mr. Lamb's house. These were now ancient souls, long trained. Thus, Mr. Lamb's defensive measures had no effect. Entering the house, the spirit soldiers saw Mr. Lamb sitting on his bed in meditation. His whole body was thinner and paler than usual. He was constantly spitting blood, and his mind was no longer clear. They tried to use their strength to dance and move in front of him, but he barely reacted. However, no matter how weak Mr. Lamb was, his body was protected by the spiritual sword. Therefore, whenever the spirit soldiers tried to approach him, they were repelled. When he received the report, Kai was overjoyed. He slammed his fist on the table. Good heavens, and all these days I've been worried, afraid that old man would attack. So Mr. Lamb is now no different from an old dog waiting to die, is he? But it's okay, he can protect himself, but I'm not so sure about the villagers. As he spoke, a sinister gleam appeared in Kai's eyes. He stood up, looking at the Asura god wall before him, and muttered. The next morning, just as the rooster crowed, screams of despair echoed simultaneously throughout the small village, as if tearing through one's heart. The cries and shouts of people startled Mr. Lamb awake. He thought it was the wandering ghosts and spirit soldiers causing trouble again. Mr. Lamb looked around. His house was still completely normal. There was no disturbance whatsoever. It was then that he realized the cries of sorrow were coming from outside. Furthermore, these cries sounded like those of ordinary people. So, he quickly got out of bed, opened the door, and went out to see what was happening. After some inquiry, Mr. Lamb learned that from last night until now, over a dozen people in the village had died, all healthy young men. What was more, each death was identical. The unfortunate victims would only let out a single desperate cry before collapsing to the ground, blood gushing from their noses and mouths, then suffocating. Hearing this, Mr. Lamb immediately thought of Kai. He also knew that to create such wicked events meant that the Asura demon king had been reborn. Without further delay, he made his way to the small house where he had previously followed Kai. Upon arrival, he kicked the door open, but it was too late. The house, which had been empty, was now even emptier. There was not a soul inside. The statue of Asura, holding 2 large swords, was also gone. While he was wondering what to do, a laugh echoed from somewhere. "You're a bit slow, old man. What are you doing, for heaven's sake? Don't you know how dangerous it is?" "Where are you? Where are you?" "Old man, you're calm now, but you were so worried earlier, weren't you? I will find you soon enough." The laughter gradually faded, as if dissolving and disappearing. Mr. Lamb let out a sharp breath, muttering something under his breath. His hands trembled uncontrollably. He didn't know if he was angry or scared. Leaving the small house, Mr. Lamb quickly went to the market, bought a rooster, a yellow dog, and several stacks of pale yellow Taoist paper. Returning home, he closed all the doors and arranged the offerings on the altar: a bowl of dog blood, a bowl of chicken blood, and incense, candles, and fruit. Finally, he placed his sex-treasured spiritual sword in the center of the table. Once everything was prepared, he lit the incense and candles in the small bronze censer, then clasped his hands together and reverently prayed. Ancestors, I am Za, the 77th generation disciple of our sect. For a long time, I resolved to live in seclusion, not caring about worldly affairs, nor involving myself in matters of the underworld. But today, faced with the rampant evil of the demon realm, I respectfully invite all of you here to bestow your protection and strength upon me to uphold the path of heaven. Just as he finished speaking, the sword suddenly vibrated, clanging against its stand. Mr. Lamb seemed unfazed. He reached out and grasped the blade. Though it had passed through hundreds of years of history, it was not dull at all. On the contrary, it was as sharp as ever. Mr. Lamb drew the sword across his hand. Blood from the wound flowed out. Drop by drop, it fell into the 2 bowls of chicken and dog blood that had been prepared. As his fresh blood dripped, the blood in the bowls began to boil and bubble vigorously. He waited a little longer, until so much blood had flowed that his face turned pale, then he stopped. Next, he used a brush dipped in the blood to draw talismans. Hundreds of talismans with strange, intricate patterns, full of incomprehensible twists and turns, were drawn. After drawing, he imbued them with his blood and went to each house, giving one to each person. He sternly warned them that tonight, they must stick it outside their door, and no matter what sounds they heard, they must not go outside. Of course, some people didn't believe him and scoffed, fearing he was trying to deceive them for money. It wasn't until Kwang's family recounted how Mr. Lamb had helped them that the villagers believed. After distributing the talismans, Mr. Lamb returned to his house. Having dealt with one worry, he now addressed the second. He placed talismans in every corner of his own home. The spiritual sword now appeared dim, its magical power seemingly exhausted. It had turned pitch black, looking like a broken sword. When all was done, Mr. Lamb sat opposite the altar, began to circulate his vital energy through his meridians. As the energy flowed, his body seemed to return to its former state. His muscles strengthened, his skin tautened, and hot air rose from his head. His eyes narrowed, his eyebrows raised, looking no different from a general in ancient plays. At this moment, the sky outside suddenly darkened. Even though it was only a little past 5 p.m., it looked like the middle of the night. The villagers had heeded Mr. Lamb's warning and were now inside. So, the streets were empty. Lightning began to flash, occasionally illuminating a corner of the sky. Hidden behind that storm, if one looked closely, they would see a large, swirling black cloud moving directly towards Mr. Lamb's house. Still displaying a calm and composed demeanor, Mr. Lamb stepped out in front of his house, squinted, looked around, and then spoke loudly. "Since you're here, come out. No need for intimidation." From the darkness, tall figures, at least 3 meters tall, emerged. As they drew closer, Mr. Lamb was surprised, for these figures were indeed Kai. Disregarding their unusual height, their faces were unmistakably his. Kai now was a merged entity, the Usra demon king currently in a half-human, half-demon form. Kai glared intensely at Mr. Lamb, then growled, "Old man who doesn't know his place, do you know who you're messing with this time? Be smart and kneel down to beg for your life. You seem to have some power. If you agree to follow me, not only will you live a luxurious life, but you might even gain immortality." Mr. Lamb remained completely unresponsive to such words. His face was still filled with cold indifference. Kai stepped closer, revealing hundreds of thousands of other shadowy figures behind him. This was his army of spirit soldiers, which he had cultivated for a long time. In every aspect, they were far superior to the weak wandering ghosts from before. This disparity in numbers made Mr. Lamb realize that this would be a fight to the death. But even if he perished, it wouldn't matter. The important thing was whether he could eliminate this threat to the people of the region. He stepped forward, one hand gripping the rusty spiritual sword, while the other held talismans, murmuring incantations. On the other side, Kai, not wanting to waste any more time, waved his hand and commanded his spirit army to attack. Their growls and shouts broke the silent air. Mr. Lamb at that moment was like a sheep surrounded by wolves. However, this assessment might be a bit mistaken, for hundreds of spirit soldiers were repelled when they approached him. The sounds of their impacts echoed in their heads, making the remaining ones hesitate. Kai was also very anxious, for even though he knew his opponent was not simple, he didn't expect him to be this strong. He took a deep breath, waved his hand, and the spirit soldiers, as if given renewed strength, charged again fiercely. The battle raged for over an hour. Mr. Lamb had used protective spells on himself, combined with the precious spiritual sword in his hand. But clearly, his power was not enough for a prolonged battle. His sword strokes began to weaken. On the other side, the spirit soldiers had also suffered significant losses. Only a few hundred remained. Mr. Lamb gasped for breath, formed a hand seal, and lunged forward. After another half an hour, the spirit soldiers suddenly retreated, leaving Mr. Lamb standing amidst a cloud of dark energy. Did Kai flee? That decision couldn't have been his. It turned out Kai had ordered his spirit soldiers to retreat so he could personally kill Mr. Lamb. In his eyes, Mr. Lamb was now just an old dog with no strength left to fight. And it was true. Mr. Lamb's eyes were nearly blind, unable to see anything beyond 2 or 3 meters in front of him. His hands trembled so violently that he had to fall to his knees, leaning on the sword in his hand. Kai stepped closer, still with that familiar sneer and disdainful voice. "Old man, you're almost done, aren't you? Do you know how long I trained to get those spirit soldiers? Are you going to compensate me?" Mr. Lamb didn't reply, but his mouth caught each drop of salty sweat falling from his forehead. He clearly felt a strong surge of dark energy emanating from Kai's body. Mr. Lamb tried to use his remaining strength to speak. "Young man, why did you go down this path? Aren't you afraid of retribution?" Kai laughed maniacally, glaring at him, then calmly replied, "Retribution? I stopped fearing that illusion long ago. In my eyes, there is only revenge now." "Revenge?" Mr. Lamb frowned. The word, revenge, Kai just uttered couldn't help but make him curious. Kai looked up at the sky as if memories from the past resurfaced. "I was a child named Kai with special abilities. I could see the souls of the dead and was often possessed by them. My family found it difficult to raise me, so they took me to a hermitage, asking a Taoist priest for help. Master Kai, seeing my innate talent, kept me, nurturing me and passing down his Taoist teachings. But my nature was competitive, causing trouble with the others in the hermitage many times. Once, I pretended to be sick and hid in the kitchen, but my master discovered me. He locked me in the study room as a form of repentance. Feeling disadvantaged and disheartened, I decided to escape through the window and return home. I thought that after so many years apart, my reunited family would make me happy. However, upon arriving, I discovered a shocking truth. Long ago, after taking me to the hermitage, my parents went to ask for me back. But the Taoist priest refused, wanting to keep me as his true disciple. As a result, in just one night, he used spells to kill my entire family, from my grandparents down to the children in their own home. Because I was still learning his magic, I only caught a glimpse, but it was enough to ignite an unquenchable hatred. I returned to the hermitage that very night, but not to accept punishment. Instead, 7 agonized screams echoed from within. By the time someone woke up, my master was lying in a pool of blood, muttering meaningless phrases. As for me, after burying my parents, I entered the study, took many ancient magical texts and books, then left the village for good. It took 5 years of cultivation in the deep mountains before I finally found my path, dark magic. And I also vowed to exterminate anyone who practiced sorcery as a way to avenge my parents. The memory stopped here and Kai returned to reality. Before him now was Mr. Lamb's frail body. Kai sat down, grabbed Mr. Lamb's hair and pulled his head up. Mr. Lamb coughed up blood directly onto Kai's face. Kai, far from being angry, laughed mockingly. "Old man, you don't have long to live. How about this? I'll offer you a way out. Just follow me and help me, and I'll ask the Demon King to grant you another 5 or 10 years of life." Mr. Lamb sighed and shook his head. "Stop, young man. You're too deeply lost. Your eyes are blinded by greed. You will surely regret this later." "Too bad. I doubt you'll live to see that day." As he spoke, Kai raised his hand, seized the top of Mr. Lamb's head, and brought it down. Mr. Lamb seemed prepared for his death, his face calm. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and quietly accepted his fate. A painful scream suddenly echoed, accompanied by a sound of agony. But strangely, this scream was not from Mr. Lamb, but from Kai. Mr. Lamb immediately opened his eyes. Kai had fallen to the ground. He clutched his hand, in great pain. Looking closely, a knife was impaled through his hand. "Master, master!" 2 calls echoed from the front gate. 5 or 6 figures were rushing towards them, and then Mr. Lamb finally recognized them. These were the disciples he had taught with all his heart in the past. It turned out that due to his excessive exertion during the ritual, Mr. Lamb had inadvertently opened a spiritual connection with his disciples. Fearing their master was in danger, they rushed here as quickly as possible. Master and disciples reunited, overjoyed and tearful. Even Mr. Lamb was surprised by their appearance. After being released from prison, he had resolved to live in seclusion and not meet his disciples again. But now, they had come to fight for him. If he had to die tonight, Mr. Lamb would feel content. As for Kai, being unprepared, he was caught off guard and struck. Clutching his bleeding hand, he stumbled backward, muttering incantations. Above, the storm raged furiously. The remaining spirit soldiers now transformed into deep red shadows, emitting an incredibly powerful dark energy. However, Mr. Lamb's disciples were not ordinary either. Unlike their master, they had actively cultivated and learned from other Taoist practices over time, so their powers were quite formidable. 5 of them formed a circle, batting away wave after wave of the spirit soldiers' attacks. Finally, even Kai was thrown back, his body becoming like that of an ordinary person, the dark energy on him seemingly gone. Before he drew his last breath, his eyes welled up, and he continuously called out, "Father, Mother." As for Mr. Lamb, though he had eliminated the threat and witnessed his disciples' success, he had exhausted too much energy. He quickly collapsed to the ground, his eyes closing, a gentle smile of contentment gracing his lips. After his passing, his disciples brought his body back to his hometown for burial. They built a grand temple for him, and whether it was due to his virtue or not, the temple became incredibly sacred. Every day, hundreds and thousands of people from all over flocked there to seek fortune and blessings.